This is the last slide from the previous presentation on LAISVI TELŠIAI, and that's from my picture from KPAX in Toronto last summer, where both my dad and my son, as well as myself, we all exhibited, and we all got good awards, all golds. Perfect. So I have to apologize ahead of time. I ran out of time last night and this morning and could not get through everything that I wanted to include in part one. So the remainder of part one, which is a postal history and forgeries, will be added to part two. And we'll start with that next time. But we'll go through the issues, and we are not going to talk about agricultural exhibit issues today, but just the regular stamps. And as you know, TELŠIAI local overprints were done on Soviet Union stamps, and there are three types of overprints. The small one, which is about the capital letters are about 2 millimeters tall. The type 2, which is a medium size overprint, capital letters are 2.5 millimeters tall, and a large overprint with the capital letters of 4 millimeters in height. And these are complete sets of all three types. There were two printings of the overprint, and first printing yielded type 3 and type 2 overprints, and second printing produced type 3 large and type 1 small overprints. This is an example of first printing. Small stamps were overprinted on June 30th, and the three large stamps were overprinted on a few days later. In early July. The small stamps were overprinted, as I said, the type 2 over type 3. Here are the quick scan of 5 out of 100. They were overprinted in sheets of 100 stamps. And the two top rows were large overprints, type 3, then 3 rows of medium overprints, type 2. And the combination repeated itself again. So a total of 40 stamps with type 3 and 60 stamps with type 2 overprint in each sheet. So there could be vertical pairs of two different types, large over medium or medium over large overprint. And here is an example of TELŠIAI first printing vertical pairs with type 3 overprint on top and type 2 overprint on the bottom. The large stamps were all overprinted just a few days later on July 3rd, and they also included type 2 overprint and type 3 large overprints. And that's how it was done. They were overprinted in a sheet of 50 stamps. And again, 20 stamps were in type 3 overprint on the bottom 2 rows, and the medium overprint type 2 were the top 3 rows. And vertical pairs of two types also are in existence, but this time they can only be medium overprint type 2 on the top and large overprint type 3 on the bottom. And here's an example of the pairs, the type 2 on the top, type 3 on the bottom, and these are the two bottom rows in the 1 ruble Red Army stamps, and the third from the bottom row is type 2 overprint, as you can see. Full sheets of large stamps do exist, as well as full sheets of small stamps are in existence. So all the overprint types can be easily traced to a specific position in the sheet. The overprinting took place. The plates were done and put together rather quickly by the printing house, and printing was done with every single plate, every single cliche being somewhat slightly different from another one, and that way you can, each stem could be potentially plated to a specific position in the sheath, and that is the case for small stems as well for the large stems. So we're going to talk about overprint varieties now. Because every stamp is just so slightly different, some mistakes were made, and some major and minor varieties occur. This is the first printing, inverted overprints. The only inverted overprints in the first printing could be found in 15 kopek stamp, and there was only one sheet in existence, making some of these stamps quite rare, and others are simply unique. So it was one sheet of 100 stamps, and of course, because it's one sheet, 40 of them were type 3 and 60 of them were type 2 overprints. And here is an example of a pair with type 3 on the top and type 2 on the bottom. This is probably one of the rarest errors of TELŠIAI issue. It only exists in 5 kopek stamp, and it was the first stamp to be overprinted, and the error was found rather early in the overprinting process and was corrected right away. So I have only seen this one specific error, but I have heard that there is another one in existence in the block of 4 somewhere in Germany, I believe, but again, I have not seen it. It was just somebody else's report. But as you can see, the stamp in the middle here has 1921 instead of 1941, and that's quite a unique mistake that was corrected right away. By the way, the top right stamp is 1946. That's another error, but that persists all through the printing process, and that was never really corrected. It exists in all denominations and twice per sheet. But 1921 is a very unique error. And that's type 2, of course. Here are other major overprint errors in type 2 overprint. The one on the top left is TELŠIAI instead of TELŠIAI. The second one is V with non-printed line in a month, making it May as opposed to June. The third one has a large size number 9, and the fourth one has a slanted number 2. And these are kind of more of a major overprint varieties. And there is a whole bunch of, and of course, all of them can be traced to a specific position in the sheath, and here are the positions if you're interested. All that information, by the way, is in Antanas Jankauskas catalog. Some of it is in Michael, but the Antanas Jankauskas catalog, when he asked me to write it in 2000, I believe 13 was the catalog issue, so I wrote it for him in 11 or 12. I included a lot of pictures and a lot of varieties that are not necessarily always mentioned in Michael Specialized. And here are some minor varieties of overprint, again traced to a specific position in the sheet, and you can see that some of them are already shown and some of them are just break in the plates, so they're just plate flaws, so to say. Antanas lists them as varieties, but they truly are just simply plate flaws. Now, same first printing, major overprint errors in type 3. And as I've already alluded, one of them you already saw was 1946 in the year instead of 1941. Another one in the top left here is LAISVI as opposed to TELŠIAI, that occurs in one position in the sheath. And there are two varieties that have type 3 overprint in the first two lines and type 2 overprint in the bottom line of the date. The difference between the two is that the one, as you can see here on the left, this stamp has TEI, SIAI, TEISHAI, as opposed to TELŠIAI. But both of them, so this is kind of a double error if you want. And both of them have type 2 overprint on the bottom and type 3 on the top. So these are varieties of the major varieties of the type 3 overprint in the first printing. And there are minor varieties such as or inadequately printed number 2 and the small number 4 in certain positions. Now, double errors. Double errors included, of course, the one sheath of the inverted 15 Kopek stamp, and of course the usual errors, and inverted make it double errors. So because there was only one sheath, variety such as LAISVI that occurs only one per sheet, or TELŠIAI are unique stamps. They could only have happened in that particular stamp. The stamp with TELŠIAI variety is in Dr. Daniela's collection, as far as I know, in Australia. The rest of them, the 1946 variety and the large and small print, these are from my collection. So some of them are scarce and some of them are simply unique. And now we talk about overprint varieties in a large stamp issue. And in the type 2 overprint, there is a large gap in position 1 between the first line and the second line, as opposed to the regular size gap. And that's the variety in position 1 in the sheet. Slanted 2 again occurs, and that's plate 26 in a sheet of 50. Here we have the top 2 lines in type 3 and the date in type 2, position 30. Here we have a small 1 in 1941, that's position 32. Here we have a gap between 4 and 1, and that's position 45. And here we have a small 4 in position 34. I tried not to include the 1 ruble stamp, the Red Army stamp, because it's a black and dark red background, and it's really hard to see, but you will see some of them a little later on. The overprint itself, it doesn't stand out as much. And of course, then there was a second printing of the overprint, and this again occurred in small issues and large issues and large stamps, and the overprints were type 1 and type 3 this time, the large overprint and the small overprint. As opposed to the first printing, in the second printing, the printing occurred in 25 large stamps, 25 small stamps, 25 large and 25 smalls. And as you can see, total is 50 and 50 of large and small breakdown. And right in the middle, you can have a horizontal as well as vertical pairs that are possible in this set. And here's an example of blocks of 6 right from the middle of the sheet that shows you the combination of horizontal pairs with type 1 and type 3 overprint, as well as vertical pairs with type 1 and type 3 overprint. And again, this is the whole set of small stamps. The Telšiai large stamps, if you look at in the postage stamps of Lithuania handbook from 1978, which was always a gold standard, so to say, for these issues, it says that the large stamps were overprinted in the sheets of 50 stamps, which is correct, and it states that they were 30 stamps on the top. If top 3 rows were large overprint type 3, and the bottom 2 rows were small overprint type 1. But it also states that there were no full sheets known. Well, here are examples of large over the small pairs. And as you can see, there are different varieties. There are different plate flaws in these vertical pairs that could be pointed out. But the interesting one was a discovery of this block of 4. And of course, this should not happen if the Lithuanian postal stamp of Lithuania handbook was correct. So how is this possible? Well, turns out that a little research had to be done about that, and that was also included in Antanas's catalog back 10 years ago now, where the postal stamps of Lithuania, originally published by Janas Grigaliūnas and company, was incorrect in that regard. The printing actually occurred in this format, and this is right out of Antanas's book. And again, they were overprinted. 50 stamps in the sheet were overprinted 25 and 25. So right in the middle there was this connection between type 3 overprint and type 1 overprint. And a total of 25 and 25 stamps were issued. And there are 2 half sheets that are known to exist. And this picture actually is, this sheet is not in my collection, but this picture positions all the plates of overprint, and as they refer to small overprint stamps, because the same cliches were used, and this was created by Dr. Klein when he was alive. So he shared that with me a long time ago. Now we go to the second printing, which is as interesting or as boring to some of you guys as the first printing, but nevertheless, here we go. There were a lot of stamps printed in Telšiai in separate sittings. So the second printing had more inverted overprints in the second printing varieties, and as opposed to only one sheet of 15 kopek stamps, here we had multiple sheets of 5 kopek stamp and 60 kopek stamp. Again, the combinations were type 3 overprint over type 1 overprint, a large and a small overprint in small stamps. And minor overprint varieties exist in the small overprint type 1. There are no major really errors, and you can see this is right out of out of the catalog by Antanas. This is something that I put together again over a decade ago, and not much had changed since then. They all still persist, and there are no significant new ones since then. The major overprint errors occur in a large type 3 overprint, and this is an example of a month being April as opposed to June, and that is in positions 5 and 55. Minor overprint in type 3 are as follows. There is a break in L in the I believe it's in position 1, pretty certain. And there is number 1 instead of L in Telšiai, and so on and so forth. You can see all these splits and plate flaws and differences. Now, double errors, of course, exist because some of the stamps with errors are inverted. And here are some of double errors overprints. This is month April instead of June on inverted stamps. The one on the left is 5 kopeek, and the one on the right is 60 kopeek. Inverted overprints also occurred on large stamps, and there is type 1 and type 3 overprints inverted on large stamps, and of course the Red Army stamp was overprinted with the stamp looking down, and these are inverts with the stamp looking up with the inverts. These are major varieties in large stamp overprints, and the varieties include, again, can you see my pointer, my arrow? Yes, good. Yep. So the month is April instead of June in top right. Month is April instead of June in top left in the Red Army stamp. And the position 17 was a unique error which occurred only in part of the overprint. Not the entire overprinting process was seen that error, and that is almost absent here, and it's also gone here. That was in position 17 in the sheet of 50. So again, double errors in top overprint. Here is an inverted April for June arrow. Here is a broken I in LAISVI in the inverted position, of course. Here are some inverts with the missing date 26. Here is an invert with, again, this is April instead of June for month. So these are double errors. Of course, these are particularly scarce just because the quantity was limited. And here is a triple error. And this only occurs in this because it's not a double, it's a triple overprint. And this in the middle, as you can see, this is a block of 4 that existed for a long time. And in Jankauska's catalog, I actually pictured that block, and it was in black and white, pictured in Jankauska's catalog, because the color picture I did not have at the time. Well, at some point, this block of 4 in the middle was broken down. And as you can see here on the top left, there is a stamp that is exactly this stamp from the block of 4 that I was able to buy and is in my collection now. But I was also able to put together additional stamps that would fit plating-wise to this well-known block of 4. And here is the stamp that would be in position attached here. And here is yet another stamp that fits in perfectly. So just recreating the full sheath of the inverts with a triple overprint. These are quite scarce, and of course, triple overprint only occurred on a small portion of the sheet, so so that's quite rare. They're just single-digit numbers of these triple overprint stamps in existence. And I think that my my copy of this triple overprint is one of the more interesting ones because it has a triple overprint error as well as an invert, as well as VI error in the date, which is essentially a plate flaw, but it certainly is recognizable both in Michael and Jankauska's catalog. So so these this is as far as the errors of the Telšiai overprint goes. Now, here is an interesting and probably the last slide that I'll show, well, last topic that I'll show in today's presentation. This is an interesting stamp that was out of Charlie Matuzas's collection and sold at Cherrystone in 2011, and eventually went up for sale again just a couple of years later, and I purchased it because I was just so curious about the stamp. So the curious part of the stamp is that it could not be plated to any position in the sheet, any known position in the sheet. And of course, Cherrystone had sent everything to Mr. Krishke before the sale for expertization, and Mr. Krishke printed a certificate saying that this is a correct stamp from the first printing, and with appropriate Telšiai cancel, which is all correct. The Telšiai cancel is appropriate, and the ink of the overprint looked legitimate, and the only thing that does match is that could be plated to any position in the sheet that are known. In addition, as you can see, the date in the stamp is very, very wide, certainly significantly wider than any of the other stamps. As you can see, the date is tight in these, where here the date is rather wide, that last line. And that's why I was curious about it. Clearly did not come up from the regular printing, yet it was certified by Krishke and overall had kind of a sense of looking somewhat right. It did not look like a definitive forgery or anything, but piqued my curiosity. So what I did at the time, and that we're talking about, over 10 years ago, I sent a copy of this to Dr. Daniela at the time and see what his opinion is. And this is what I got in the reply from him. And he has a stamp just like that in his collection. And he sent it to me and wrote on a piece of paper, it's trial on hand press. And this is the stamp that he got from Mr. Grigaliunas, and it was and Grigaliunas, when he gave it to Daniela, he said it was a proof of the overprint. On the right hand side, you can see a picture of Daniela and Grigaliunas. They were good friends, very well known and respectable stamp collectors and philatelists, and this is from 1973. So that's 50 years ago, and in Munich. So as you know, Grigaliunas was there in Telšiai when these stamps were overprinted, and some even say that he was a big part of this whole overprinting process. He traveled from town to town with Telšiai overprints and sent himself letters from different places with these stamps, and was very, very active. So it comes as a legitimate possibility that it is indeed a proof that was presented by Grigaliunas to Daniela a few years back, but obviously there was more than one, and it was actually because of that bottom line, the date, it was too wide to be used for small stamps, and that's the reason why it was never approved, and they tightened up that whole overprint. The one that we see on the stamps that were issued is actually much tighter. By the way, this information is not published anywhere. I never wrote anything about that, no articles or anything of that nature, and it's not in any catalogs. And the reason for that is because I cannot prove it. However, over the course of last decade or so, I have been on the lookout for these, and this is what I found so far. These are 6 different stamps with this kind of proof overprint in existence. All 6 of them are canceled. All cancellation marks are appropriately dated. Pretty much all of them have different dates, and it's a legitimate TELŠIAI D cancel, so it's not a forgery of a cancel, but I have never seen a mint one. So so that's all I can say about that. And with that, that was my last slide for today that I put together literally this morning. Unfortunately, I was planning on getting into forgeries of these overprints and of course the postal history with these stamps, but that will have to wait until part 2.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Terrific presentation as always. A lot of details and a lot of materials to think about. Hopefully people will come up with appropriate questions. And while you are thinking about your questions, I would like to welcome those members who joined us very late in the talk. So we're up to 19, very good.
No questions, huh?
Do you have any items shown used, or not just pure stamps, but the cover?
Yes, I do have covers and all. I just did not have time this morning to scan them all together. They will have to be in part 2.
Okay.
I do have a question. Are most of these rarities held in private collections now?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Obviously, June overprints is a very broad topic, so perfect for a multi-frame exhibit, you know, a few years down the road.
Oh my goodness.
You know, it's not like a one-framer. It's, you know, you can immediately hit 8 or so.
It definitely is not the one frame. As a matter of fact, even 8 frames is potentially not enough. It's a huge topic in my opinion. Yeah, eventually it'll make it into a multi-frame exhibit, and the struggle is going to be what to exclude, as Vesma well knows.
Right, you know, just focus on telling your story, and whatever that story is, you know, with the great examples and illustration, and just don't think about what to exclude. Just
the good thing is that there are not too many covers. All the covers with these June overprints are predominantly philatelic, and most of them didn't even go through mail, were just favorite cancels on the cover. And the few that survived that are non-philatelic are very, very seldom, and there literally is maybe 2 or 3 per overprint. So from that regard, it's not going to occupy too much space.